is after Nat Turner was captured, his capturer had to write to his life, his body, and peeled his skin and made a lampshade for his house and a purse for his wife. And so this poem is written in 3 voices. Nat Turner as ghost, Nat Turner as purse, and Nat Turner as lampshade. You want to start, Jen?
Okay. Well, I'm going to do it for you.
Yeah.
Nat Turner as ghost.
I would do it again, plot and plan and kill too if pushed, would confide in my betrayer, hoping to win his heart to his own heartbeat. I would do it again, work my way through the hatred, covered my skin with promises voice, squeezed through the fear until I find a breath in which to see one dream. Yes, I would do it again, and I do, until I see a glint of a smile snagged on doubtful lips, and for one black child to glance unshackled at the moon. I would be the ghost that prodded their steps to head north. I would be the wind that called them to my bosom. Yes, I would do it again, and I do.
Songs of freedom.
All I ever have, redemption songs. Nat Turner as purse.
Pressed against her body, my smooth serene is the ache that is her heart, since she came south, wife to a man who loves breaking things. She has long been shattered shards, glued into newness. Now he presses my thighs to her chest. Me, a man made fugitive, we must both endure his caresses. Revenge and perversion, this impotent voyeur, the husband who sometimes goes to her bed, fully assured she will bow down. But she lives the Underground Railroad through me. I come between them, my skin the wall that dams their offspring, through whom I live on and on.
Won't you help me sing
These songs
redemption songs?
Nat Turner as lampshade.
In destroying he illuminates, blinded by my blindness, my skin lights the freedom he can never penetrate. I am the runaway god in Master's parlor, listening to the talk, his habits stored in my hue. Next time I will know, next time. Each night he sits to read, his eyes grow dimmer, but I shine, memory that will never fade. My skin stretched taut, enduring the heat of the flame, licking my time.
Won't you help me sing
These songs of freedom,
all I ever have,
redemption song.
This next one is called Cosmology Meditation, and I wrote it, it's quite different, because there's also that sense of the universe, and I actually heard a cosmologist discussing string theory, and this is what I got out of it, for alternative poetry. We are the memory of that place without measure that filled all space that never was and ever will be. That place existing as the perfect note, yet making no sound, holding all colors inside a light that was nothing but darkness. We are the memory of a breath that could not be but was, a breath that swelled to bubble which burst and then collapsed.
We are the memory gestated in days that lasted eons as the universe womb birthed heat, light, rock, ice, mineral, songs, us.
We are the impossible made flesh, creating infinite possibilities of hope or endless chasms of despair inside the prayer which we have become.
inside the prayers which we have become,
infinite possibilities of
inside
hope,
the prayers which we have
endless
become,
chasms of despair,
inside
the prayers which we have become. Okay, so this is, I call this Delphi Oracle, and this is a true story. I don't know if it's the true story of how I became a poet, but it's a true story, okay? Most of the story's in the poem, but I just want to say, I was with my family in Delphi. My dad had decided that my brother and I could never understand what it was to be free if we didn't leave the United States of America. That there's no way you can feel, as African American, that you can feel that in this country. And which I have found to be true, because it still is the only place that I'm free, is outside of the boundaries of this country. Because then I'm human. I'm not a black American. I'm just, and that's, I mean, I am a black American, but for other people, I'm just American. They don't do that stuff.
And when you go somewhere else, you're just an American black.
No, yeah, right, exactly. It's a whole different world. Well, unless I'm in India where they claim me, or Nepal where they claim me, or Paris where it's like, Martinique, Antigua. You know, I mean, then I'm the world. Anywhere else, it's only the issues here. But anyway, so my father's a writer and my mother is a painter, so to be fair, yeah, I might have come out writing. But this is a true story. I wasn't a poet when this happened. I'm at the Delphi Oracle. 3 blackbirds. This is from Herodotus. 3 blackbirds. They were 3 black oracles, 3 black seers from Africa, and they were kidnapped from East Africa, okay, and taken to Greece, where the oracle was built, and where they had their various messages, okay, and they went on to leave their spirit, theoretically, in the oracle and in the river. We crossed the road, climbed partway down a rocky cliff. Our guide says, "Drink from this river of song and become a poet." I am not quite 14. I believe, kneel and drink 1 handful of the icy water and then another. When I next return to that place, I am just past 19 and the stream has been dammed. I kneel and touch the dry riverbed, smile, and remind myself to write a new poem that very evening. Yeah, so I don't know if that's why I became a poet, but I always claim it as part of the story. Okay. I'm going to do this long poem if I can find it. I'm actually doing this because little Byron got murdered on Grove and Buchanan. I know you guys don't know little Byron. I knew little Byron. The poem is for Jaquan. I knew Jaquan. Jaquan lived next door to me. There are so many young African-American, mostly males, some females, that get killed and mostly don't make the newspapers. And especially those that get killed by each other because, well, you know, that's what they get, they're thinking, you know. And it's a true tragedy, and I wanted to, because so much is raised up for those who are unjustly killed by the police, which is important that that stop. But I wanted to do one for these other young men. So this is, Jaquan is the name that's in the poem, but it's for him, it's for little Byron, and it's for anybody you might know or have heard of yourself. You can put in anybody's name. I saw you growing from round cheek baby to shiny-eyed schoolboy to streetwise teen, holding your sister on your hip, trading stories with your friends, tossing one twin brother and then another into the air as each laughed and wriggled. Still, I know little of you, except for your keenness of mind and undercover smile, A certain gentleness despite it all in your tall, lanky frame, full of a dark energy never quite harnessed. But this poem is for you, Jaquan. So you will be more than a corner of a back-page news story, a whispered rumor, a nod to those who did not know you, a snicker from those who claim to know your kind, because you are always more than that. Because you should be more than a bullet in the middle of your 17-year-old chest, a few blocks from your cousin's house, from the streets where your father roamed in slang, love, and fought. Still handsome, they said when laid out in the polished white tuxedo and sunset orange shirt that you would have worn to your senior prom just a few weeks away. You people gathered, filled 2 floors to say goodbye, to send you on, knowing that what you could have been was infinite, given maybe just a few more years to steer in the right direction, to stride through these violence-littered streets on your brilliance. But from the day you were born, equal parts of cockiness and tender, deadly shadows painted everything, waiting, lurking for you. Do you know, Jaquan, how many teenage boys shot, or stabbed, or beat to death one another in this self-proclaimed bastion of justice and freedom since you died? It was more than 100, I will tell you that. Double that figure if we raise the age to teen through 23. And for we who say we love you, or we who say we care, for all of us who shake our heads, oh, what a shame. Oh, what a shame. Oh, what a shame. There is enough blame to go around. Everyone can take a bite of that humble pie. What were you but a promise broken, a future betrayed by those who knew you and by those who did not? We do not keep count of the fallings, of the failings. We scream out, the state does not love our children. Look at how it treats them. Look at how it kills them, renders them invisible. But what do we do to stop the killing of our children by our children? Who stands up for you and the thousands in front and in back of you? Instead, we speak of crime waves, homicide rates, and uncontrolled youth violence. We speak of more incarceration and gun laws, and about how much we fear our young. Where is our outrage at this slow, corrosive genocide? Where and how do we carry our shame when we do little or nothing to stop it? We do not call your name, Jaquan, or the names of the hundreds like you, or the thousands like you. We should do more for you and the dozens who died between the time I started this poem and the day you were buried. For you and the hundreds who will have died between the time I finish this poem and read it aloud. For you and the thousands who will die before this poem finds a stranger's pocket. Sad, but necessary. Let me do an introduction one. I do not believe I would ever kill myself for political reasons. But I've always remembered, because of my age at the time, how the Buddhist monks during the Vietnam War sat cross-legged and set themselves on fire. I'm seeing lots of nodding heads. And I truly believe that helped end the war. Because we became so appalled by it that more and more people stood up. So when Muhammad Boaz, the
Tunisian man burned himself up. It had that same kind of galvanizing effect on his people. And he did sell vegetables, but what I think is also important to know is this was a man with a college degree who could not get a job. So this is for me to honor his sacrifice and the fact that it has had an effect and continues to. Tunisian fire. He wanted to sell his just harvested greens, to earn money, buy bread, eat, live, and love with a humbled but not humble dignity. With a humble but not humbled dignity. Because he could not find another way, he made of himself a blazing fire. The scent of his burning flesh braids through the winds of our days, as more and more people come together on blocks and squares in cities across nations, seas, and continents. Women no less than men join with children and elders. Veiled stand with loose hair, schooled with peasants, strident with quiet. Together they faced armored sentries, horses and tanks, guns and muscles, gases and whips. Some are wounded, others are killed, but most stand, climb, and push forward. Muhammad's flames reach beyond his cooled ashes. Each time the people continue to gather and raise voices. Rage, rise together for bread, freedom, dignity. And then some prose. Okay, this is a love poem, since I only brought this one on my book to take in. This is called Autumn Heat. I was married this year. I got married. So this is, and so that's why it's called. But I like that. I like the kind of affirmation and the love that comes when you know a little bit more than when you thought you knew something. Maybe I should say maybe you all really knew something. I just have good survival skills. I don't know that much. I love heat's many shades. As a preteen, I stood above a blasting heating vent, hot air drying even more my rash-laden legs. Soothingly warm as I leaned over the huge speaker cabinet my father built years before. I sang with Dinah, as if I understood what she meant when she said, I cover the waterfront and watching the sea. Vowed that when I met my him, I would ask him to teach me tonight. Years later, winter rain wet, I would race home, fill the fireplace, light it up, and let Otis make me warmer as he sang sitting near the dock of the bay, foghorns moaning as he watched the boats and whistled. And I stretched my bare toes close to the sparks. When grown, I made a habit of lying on my bed, set low beneath undraped windows, a crack of blue sky seen as I yielded my birth-scarred belly, my thick-thighed, curly-haired self to the caressing fingers of the sun's heat. So what could I do when you opened your fiery heart to me and asked me to enter? When you wrapped your strong and gentle arms around me and began to stroke the sweat out of my pores until it rolled slowly down around my breast past your lavish lips? What could I do when you held winter at bay and let me lie in the heat of your embrace that could make hot, sweet, bubbling syrup from rock salt? What could I do but love you back? So I'm going to read from Brown Glass Windows. First I'm going to read one poem. This is mostly a novel, but some of the chapters are fronted by poems. And it's the narrator of this book is a ghost. who, there's a ceremony in Africa, can't remember the country right now, in one of the west coast of Africa, where a maiden, there is a virgin, who dies, that a man will wear a mask painted in white, white being the color of death, with long cloth. All the men get together to put on the maiden's mask, and then they dance using women's steps, not men's steps. So they bring together men and women. So in the this is that what I just told you is true. So I work at a museum. I saw the mask. I give little tours about the mask and have kids write poems. So I decided that this happened, and this particular ghost found a way, because it was her man that she was about to be married to feed on her own eggs, and women have hundreds of eggs inside of us, and stay alive for centuries. So she followed this lover around until he finally abandoned her when he got to San Francisco. I don't know if you guys know, but California is named after a fictional black queen, Queen Califia. And one of the reasons was Cortez, when his boat came to these rocky cliffs, 200 of the people on the boat were of African descent. And a couple of them were his interpreters. So I made the young man one of the interpreters, and he leaves her in San Francisco. So she's there for 150 years, and she runs into Victoria, who believes herself to be invisible. So all of my novels come from theorizing about real people. Victoria is based on a black woman that I actually saw in San Francisco, who I have not seen since I finished the book. Wasn't even published. I used to see her all the time. And then I finished the book. I haven't seen her since. And she's a black woman that paints herself in white, would wear all white. And I would go asking people, have you seen her? Have you seen her? And most of the people said no. And anyway, then I asked my ex-sister-in-law, and she said, oh yeah, we have a woman like that in Atlanta. And I asked a friend of mine that lived in New York, she said, oh yeah, we got somebody like that in Harlem. So this poem came from the real women. Brown Lady in White. Have you seen her? She is shadows of Africa, buried in a mausoleum of whiteness. Her gingerbread skin cracks through the white paint. She brushes over her cheeks, across her forehead, down her neck, to meet a blouse of white, a long white skirt, white sneakers, a white cape blanketing away cold and rain mist. She walks engulfed by white, cutting the air so quickly that when she passes, she is often unseen. I have seen her clipping down Mission Street, gusting through the Tenderloin, pushing back crowds on Market. A friend swears she has seen her in Harlem, and another claims to have caught a glimpse of her in downtown of Atlanta. Have you seen her? Is she one of many? She cannot become the whiteness she wraps around herself. Her skin tones break through, proclaiming color. Brown, they insist. When we were young, they sing, as they rise above the plaint. When we were younger, we glowed in many browns. Remember when? She argues with her shadow, speaks sharply into her collar, cuts the air with aspersions. Her steps are short and clipped as she flies down the street, a whirl of discord, brown still under the white. Have you seen her? Walking faster and faster until she almost disappears, shining brown under the layers of skin. Now, the ghost and her argue all the time. She insists she's invisible. And she is to most people. Just like most people can see like that. Some people see her, some people don't. And, of course, that means that she's talking to somebody that nobody else but her can hear or see. So if it means she's crazy. She has just come back from the beach, which she never goes to, where she sees a young man as the protagonist. And she gets tired and she sits down. This whole book takes place in San Francisco, most of it in the film industry. And she sits down on a bench, and she's really angry at the ghost. And because she was seen. And so she's telling the ghost, it's your fault I was seen. You know, otherwise nobody would have seen me. But it's your fault. You know how poorly I slept last night, and here you are berating me. I know what I have to see, and say what I see what I have to see, and say what I have to say. That does not make me foolish. Seeing doesn't make my life less peaceful, and it doesn't make more people see me, no matter what you might say. Victoria drew back and stopped up short in the middle of the next block. She raised her voice again when I pointed out she had to admit that someone always sees a Negro. That's the most ridiculous thing I've heard you say in weeks, and you have been quite absurd in your conversations. Well, for one thing, I am not a Negro. By this time, she was winded. She decided to rest, as she often did, on the small wooden bench in the mini park on the corner where her school friend Darlene's house once stood. She reached the bench and slowly sat down, feeling the weight of her years, her spirit usually denied. People moved past her and around her, but they did not seem to see her. No one spoke to her. No one even looked at her. Victoria smiled. I could tell she was comfortable in her solitude. It's not true. This time her voice had quieted. She had her schoolmarm voice on, and I knew I was due for one of her lectures. You are nothing but trouble. That's just what Darlene used to say, just like you. Why don't you like being a Negro? And you are just like her, confused. Go ahead, hide behind that scrawny tree. It won't change the fact that you have no comprehension. You've been coming to visit me for years, and you still don't understand. Now, I wasn't hiding behind the tree. I was leaning up on it because I was trying to put some space between me and Victoria. Victoria got up, smoothed her skirt, and then moved to the far end of the bench where she sat back down. An elderly man, hoping to gather some coins to buy an evening brew to ease the gnawing that lived inside his gut, saw her talking to me, snapping at the air and waving her neatly gloved hands. She did not see him hovering under the light as she continued her conversation. I am the clear one. You are the one who is confused. How could I like or dislike being something I am not? She paused, and I refused to respond. What a ridiculous thing to say. Of course I was colored once, but not anymore. Now I am mostly light. The night my grandmother died, angels came to see me in a dream. They were white with pink cheeks, as all angels are. Sunbeams where there's supposed to be strings. If you looked at the sunbeams as they vibrated when the notes were played, you could see a glistening white, soft and cool, moving in time to gentle notes. When I found out my grandmother had died during the night, I knew that what I had seen was angels singing my grandmother into heaven. The family all talked about me when I wouldn't cry at the funeral. Why should I have? My grandmother was inside of the light. They talked about me because I even refused to wear black, choosing instead my white Sunday dress and a pair of long white stockings. I was getting closer to the light, and I had not stopped getting closer since. Every day, every week, just a little brighter, just a little nearer, Victoria proclaimed. With that, Victoria stood up, smoothed her skirt again, and started walking back up the street. The gray-haired man yelled at her through his cracked lips, "Hey, colored white gal, you are as crazy as the day is long. And for your information, you are still as B-L-A-C-K as me. That spells black if you ain't with it. Tinted, colored, light, crazy as a two-legged centipede, damn fool woman." He dug into his pocket and counted the change he found it. 37 cents short, best get cracking, he mumbled as he moved down the street, stopping the nearest pedestrian and asking for a bit of help. Victoria trembled as I reminded her that I had already cautioned her about her loudness and voice. "But it's your fault he saw me. Stop fussing at me and I will not need to raise my voice." She reached Sutter Street and turned the corner, picking up her pace so she became a streak moving down the block. No one bumped into Victoria. No one even seemed to see her.
Alrighty, so I'm going to do a similar kind of thing, a few poems and then a short excerpt from my novel. This is called Finding Thyself, and it's from my collection, I Name Me Name. Sometimes we stumbled and are picked up. Sometimes someone singles us out of the crowd. Sometimes we nominate ourselves, but most times we are called by an inner knowing. And although we might shuffle, act as if we don't know, we knew it all along. I knew from inside the womb I had something immense to do. You do too. But you keep running from it, keep looking around as if it isn't you who is being called. You cannot disappear into the crowd. You have been named. You have been identified. You are being awaited. Just pick yourself up, pin yourself like wet garments on a clothesline. Allow the breeze to dry you fragrant, and be the self that is knowing, the self that answers, here I am present. Fire-eating tradition. Her great-grandfather was a fire-eater from slavery days, served on the nannies spewing fire to confuse the maroons' tracks. Her father ate fire, entertained the planters with his skill, burned down fields and secured land for himself. He showed her how to hold hot coal in her fisted palms to cure illnesses. She taught herself how to eat fire, cool the outer rims of its orange blaze, take it slowly into her mouth, then gulp it down, allowing it to spread in her stomach. She had her first vision then, saw people waving black, yellow, and green-colored flags in the streets. She didn't know 16 years later that in 1962 that would be Independence Day. After that, she pondered fire, solicited it, set bushes, sheds, fields ablaze so she could skip through it, wear it next to her skin, and get lost in its searing blue flames. Blue Jay. This is from the collection there, Amor Verdina. It's a flip book, so one side is Devorah and one side is me. And so these are love poems and poems about nature. And it's called For You my love. I will gather the heroes and saints. For you my love, I will be miraculous. Blue jays, which are still one of my favorite birds. They sing me awake, mental rhythms rising and falling. Stout bodies azure prance in my garden, pecking water up through their beaks, darting from African lilies to Indian sage, skipping around the red zinnias, frolicking near the birds of paradise, digging by the gerbers. What is the language I must speak to truly thank these daily saviors? Flame tree, or the other word for it in the Caribbean, is flamboyant. She stood tall and bold, arms akimbo. When the sun was hottest, she shook her thick, plaited orange-red braids and enticed others to sit at her feet. They found laughter in their steps, found dreams they had believed long surrendered. The sight of you. You are the taste of cane and sweat, the smell of deep desire. You make of me a bamboo vine being played by the wind. Just us two. I desire nothing more than your voice reading roomy to me, whispering poetry in my ear. Nothing more than just us two, alone, holding each other as we would a beating heart. And my novel, which is entitled Painting Away Regrets, came out last year, so it's almost a year old. It is set primarily in the Bay Area in Oakland, and a little in Berkeley, and a little in Muir Woods. It's set in the Bay Area. And it's about a couple who meets at law school at Bolt and fall in love, get married, have children, and unfortunately go through a very bitter divorce. But it's also about the protagonist, Christine, coming into herself and claiming her artistry, being an artist. And then, you know, that would be enough, right? Or it should be enough, but there's the other story. In Nigeria, there is a Yoruba. The Yoruba people is one of the dominant groups, and the Yoruba tradition has influenced the New World in terms of New World religions such as Santeria, in Cuba and in the South, Macumba in Brazil, Shango in Trinidad, and some aspects of Pacamania in Jamaica. And the Orishas are, I don't like to do it, but I think for want of a better way to say, are analogous to the Greek gods, in that each Orisha is has a site that they're responsible for. So, for instance, Yemonja her site is the ocean. Ocean is the river. Osashi is the forest. So, in this novel, part of the premise is that these two people, Christine and Donald, are fated by the Orishas. That's how they met, and part of what happens has to do with them. So each section, each episode of the novel begins with one of the Orishas' voice. And so I'll just read the first voice. In the Yoruba tradition, Eshu or Elegba opens the doorway. So I'll just read that little episode. Eshu Elegba often stands at the crossroads, matted hair and beard, shabbily dressed, cleverly disguised as an old wino. Eshu Elegba, the messenger, mediator and philosopher, stands in the middle of life's road, signaling people on. He offers no advice on which direction to take. He merely detains people or sends them on, depending on his mood. On rare occasion, he intervenes on someone's behalf, but only if solicited by a person's ancestors who have kept respectful relationships with the Orishas. Eshu Elegba loves parks and open spaces with trees where he can take naps. He can be stubborn and funny too. He walks with his feet pointed eastward. And I took out the paper where I marked it, so I'll just read what I wrote. This is called Nayabingi Rhythm, and it's the second. It's not really chapters or episodes. Somehow the inevitable journey looms, and although you might be reluctant to face it, that is the only path open to you. Christine parked at the Emeraldville Marina, strode to the western end, and climbed the rocks. From there she could survey both the San Francisco and Golden Gate bridges. She stood looking out to sea like a sailor left ashore, hoping another ship would come to the rescue. But she knew there was no one to deliver her, that all she had was herself. True, she had a loving family and dear friends who would always come to her aid, but this was something that she alone would have to work out. She scrambled down the rocks to where the waves splashed gently against the shore. She found a spot where the rocks formed natural chair, and there she sat out of view of the people walking or jogging on the path above. She threw her head back, closed her eyes, and allowed the rays of the sun to penetrate her body, unfreezing her blood and open up her heart. She didn't know when the tears began, but she allowed them to flow, dripping onto the rock. Her chest heaved and her arms trembled. How had she gotten here? Nothing had prepared her for this path. How long had she been out of control? Could she ever find her way back to someplace wholesome, sane? Why hadn't anyone prepared her for the anguish? How could she have had the vaguest notion of how enormous the pain could be? She righted her head, looked out at a sailboat passing by, and then she felt as if a gigantic ball was trying to force its way up her chest. She opened her mouth and the scream came out and echoed around her head. Whoa! She hollered, spitting the ball out of her mouth, and the pain she had been feeling in her chest for several months began to slowly subside. She moaned, feeling faint. Her mouth tasted bitter, and she leant forward to spit out phlegm. Whoa! Whoa! To a friend who had asked, she said that she could not remember any good times between Donald and herself. She assumed her memory had erased any there had been because she did not want to remember. But if she allowed herself to remember, then perhaps she would not have hated him so intensely, would not have expended so much energy plotting and rehearsing his death. Was her memory as cruel as she had been? Had there been no room to store the good times with him alongside with the awful times? This was not a photo album. Besides, she had already destroyed all the pictures of them together. It was done. She needed to get on with the here and now. Damn it! Why must she return to the past? Who gives a bloody damn? She shouted at the waves and then started to giggle uncontrollably. Inside her head, she talked gently to herself like a mother to a hurting, screaming child, trying to calm herself down, urging herself to take back control. She had been flirting with a breakdown for the past 2 years, had briefly given way to it, but now was not the time to give in to it again. She adjusted her body against the rocks and sat quietly staring out into space. 2 dogs passed each other in the path, barking aggressively. Christine could hear their owners trying to calm them. After that, she heard the sound of heavy feet and strained breathing, followed by children chanting a rhyme, their voice quickening and rising as they got to its end. A pelican swooped down to catch a fish, then her attention was captured by a trail of ant on the rock below her feet. Her hand pushed against the grainy rock, warming under the sun. The salty smell of the sea sprayed her nostril. Her senses were awake. A fling was what she had in mind. She spent an intense year completing her law degree and was studying to take the bar exam, in addition to writing educational curricula to augment her grant. She had no time for romance, and since she terminated a going-nowhere relationship before her final year in law school, it was undeniable that by the end of the academic year, she was extremely horny. However, with definite plans for her career and her life, a steady long-term relationship was not in her plans. She wanted no distraction before passing her bar and entering the job market. Something serious would slow her down and complicate her plans. Although her biological clock was ticking all the time. A fling, hot sex, although she was partial to the intellectual time. For the summer, she could just be average. He could just be average, though he had to be attractive, have a good body. She didn't need him to have money except for his half of whatever they did outside the bed. She didn't want any man to think she was obligated because he bought her a meal or took her to a concert. A fling. That's what she had in mind. So Devorah and I will close with 2 more, and then the rest of you will have the day. We're doing the yes and what's it all you said? Naming? Okay.
And yes,
right, yeah. Okay. So this is naming, this is my piece, and it's in my collection with like the first 2 pieces I read called I Name You Name. And it's a book about identity and colonialism, being Jamaican and being born at that time. So this piece is about that.
I insist they name their accomplices, those who conspire to rob me of my name.
The name I have is not the name my ancestors would have named me. The name I have is a thief's name.
It is a name they gave me, and I am determined to retrieve my name.
To clear my name, to make a name for myself that cannot be abducted, cannot be traded, cannot be sold.
I have gone by the rapist's name.
I have used the kidnapper's name.
I am identified by the buyer's name.
But
these are not my names.
My father's name has been blemished.
My mother's name is taken in vain.
And if I am to make a name for myself,
I must know my name.
Not a code name or a brand name,
but my own name.
My people have been given a bad name, a name that had been trying to make them disappear.
A pauper's name so they don't have $1 to their name.
I deserve a name that is worthy of my history. I crave a name that names my voyage, the perils prevailed over.
I refuse to be considered in name only. I seek a performer's name. I demand an overcomer's name.
I insist on being well known
by the name I name myself. Too long I've assumed their names.
The usurpers always dropping names, barging into my house, hauling out my male relatives, hollering, open up in the name of the law, shooting before calling out, halt in the name of the law.
But who named the law the law? The law has two names, and I name one, unjust. They dragged me to the jail, claim my name was mentioned in connection with freedom, that I was referred to by name, that I am to give the names of my compatriots.
Many are named in connection with this movement, they say. I give the exploiter's name.
My pen name.
My stage name.
My summer name.
My pet name.
Aliases.
AK nicknames.
My trader's name.
My biased Christian name.
The bosses.
Family name.
The stockbrokers.
Trade name.
The judges.
Forename.
The journalists.
By name. And all the great names in history.
They demand to know my maiden name, my surname, my first name. What is your name, they hammer? What is your last name?
I don't have a name you can pronounce, I say, evenly bracing myself for the fist.
I have a personal name. That is my armor.
It was sung to me at birth.
It was whispered in my ears.
When I was raised up to the sun, I was told to always protect my good name. My name is the self.
My name is the self.
My name is the self.
My name is the family.
My name is the self.
My name is the nation.
My name is the self.
My name is the name I name myself. And you know how you get told things about faith or spirit, whatever, and really it's an act. You believe it or you don't, right? So one of the things that I was told was that not only do we choose to be born, but we pick our parents. What we pick is the lesson we want to learn, and then the energy of the universe decides what package that lesson will be in. This is what it is. It's for the lesson. So this piece is called The Yes to Life, because I do believe that we all opt for life, even if we don't always know that that's the case.
Absolutely.
I did ask to be born.
I did ask to be born.
When I was in that universal space between where I had been and here.
When I was riding on X star and Y galaxy on the plateau where birth meets passing on.
I know I was one who pulsed, shone, sang, cajoled, yelled, cried, fled, yes.
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 Yes, I want a tongue.
Yes, I want to breathe.
Yes, I want to dance. Yes, I want to be born.
Of course. I didn't know what I was asking for. Had no idea of hunger or pain.
Could not conceive of the word for despair or the thought of utter aloneness.
Had yet to understand how suffer and celebration could sleep so close together. No, I didn't know, but I begged and begged.
I didn't know, but I begged and begged.
Until I
got what I asked for.
Every tongue tip, mouthful, feather, soft touch, belly.
Pitted crag, breezy, gravelly,
Moment out of life.
I wanted it then.
I wanted it then.
I want it now.
I want it now.
I wanted it then.
I wanted it then.
I want it now.
I want it now.
I wanted it then.
I wanted it then.